Join us here on Dakota News Now, South Dakota's senior United States Senator and, of course, the Majority Leader of the United States Senate, John Thune. Welcome back. Nice to see you.
Thanks, Brian. Good to be with you, as always.
I want to start off with some breaking news. Within about the last half hour of us sitting down, the President announcing he's putting in place a 25% tariff on both Japan and South Korea. Where are you on these tariffs? Is it good policy? Is it tricky policy? Is it both? Is it neither?
I think it's complicated policy, and it can be both. I think, as I've articulated in the past, I'm not a fan of universal blanket across the board tariffs. I am a fan of targeted, selective tariffs that are used for a specific purpose. And if in the case of Japan and South Korea it is to get them to be more open to our products, the same access they have to the American marketplace, and reciprocity is the end goal, that's something I can get behind. Obviously, there are countries in the world, particularly take China, who has all kinds of barriers, both tariff and non-tariff, to American products, and I think they are the target of a lot of these tariffs. But I think there are countries around the world, and South Korea and Japan would represent two of those, with whom we should have a robust trading relationship. And so hopefully, if nothing else, this will get them to the table and get them to open up their markets to our products.
We've talked a lot in the past about China, the trade relationship with China, and how maybe they're not the best neighbor that was ever put on the planet. When you talk about Japan and South Korea from a trade standpoint, are they good partners generally, or do you see a tariff being put in place and say to yourself, that might be warranted?
You know, they are better partners than they used to be. They've opened up, for example, Japan, and just in the last few years, to American beef, something that had been a market that had been closed in the past. But the one thing I will tell you, Brian, and I think this makes a lot of sense, and I hope this is where this ends up, I would love to see a trilateral trade deal between the U.S., Japan, and South Korea, because I think it has not only economic benefits for all three nations, but also national security benefits, because China is in the neighborhood. And if those countries are doing business with the United States, they're less likely to be drawn into the pull, if you will, of China. And so I think there's a real value in Japan, South Korea, and America having a robust trilateral trade deal where all of our countries lower trade barriers and becomes an open market where we trade in a fair way, an open way, but also it enhances, I think, the national security benefits of that.
Now, when you say that, are you saying that you believe the United States should be doing more in the Pacific Rim specific?
Well, I think yes, and we have already assets there and troops there in the region. But I do think that having the Japan and South Korea shouldering more of that burden, just like the President has been successful in getting NATO to shoulder more of that burden, can be really important. But one of the things you do is when you have an open, robust trading relationship with a country and there's an economic dependence there, it also fosters, in my view, more of an inclination, tendency to develop a strong national security defense relationship. And I do think there are threats in that region. China's behind most of it, and having South Korea and Japan in our orbit and not theirs makes a lot of sense to me.
I want to start talking about big, beautiful bill here for a second. I want to start with this. Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, member of your caucus, was pretty open in saying, yeah, I voted for this bill, but I don't like this bill. Do you like this bill?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I obviously worked on it for a long time, and I think, there's no perfect bill. And especially now where everybody, you're trying to satisfy so many different individuals. I mean, I sat for hours listening to individuals, listening to small group meetings, large group meetings, and everybody had a chance, I think, to have their voice heard in this and to give their input. And I think the bill is a product of that, but it's never going to, hit all the marks that everybody wants it to hit. We worked really hard with Senator Murkowski, among others, to make sure that her state's interests were addressed in the bill. And in the end, I think we produced something that, in my view, is a generational piece of legislation. I mean, if you look at it since I've been in Congress, we haven't done entitlement reform. This is the first entitlement reform to strengthen and improve programs that are designed to benefit specific people in this country that have been gamed and abused and expanded to the point now where they're growing at this astronomical rate. We've got to slow the rate of growth in government spending if we're going to do anything about the federal debt, which is out of control. And this bill makes a down payment on that. It extends tax relief, it expands tax relief for middle income families, working Americans. It makes a generational investment in the border, modernizes our military, restores American energy dominance. There are tons of equities in this bill that are good for South Dakota and good for this country.
I want to drill down on some things here for a second. Kaiser Family Foundation says as a result of this big, beautiful bill, 13,000 people in South Dakota will lose access to Medicaid. Do you agree with that? Do you believe that? If so, what will the determining process be for the 13,000 who will lose? What's the delineation line? You keep these benefits, you don't.
Well, and I think, and again, I don't know their methodology, and so I've not seen that study, but what I will tell you is it is entirely possible that people who probably shouldn't have been on Medicaid in the first place may not be on it. In other words, and one of the things that's going to enforce or ensure that people who continue to get that benefit is a work requirement, that if they're going to get this benefit, they ought to be out, working. And one of the things that we've seen over the past several years, and of course I said Medicaid's grown at 50 to 60% over the past 5 years. It's just unsustainable. And so you've got to figure out how do we make it work more efficiently and make it benefit the people for whom it was intended. There are a lot of people on Medicaid today when it was expanded, and what we call the expansion population, where it's a 90% federal match. And so now a lot of states are saying, wow, we're going to add more people to the rolls, including able-bodied adults, to be eligible for that extra, federal money, to leverage more federal money. Now, South Dakota is now an expansion state. We weren't previously, but that has been abused and gamed by states like New York and California in a way that has, they continue to abuse and exploit the amount of federal funding they can receive by adding more and more people who frankly probably shouldn't have been on the rolls in the first place. In California, a lot of people who are here illegally, illegal immigrants have added. People who aren't eligible program for the program in the first place, and people honestly who ought to be working. And so the work requirements included in this legislation, frankly, in my view, are long overdue. And you look at what a Democrat president, Bill Clinton, back in the 1990s did with welfare reform, insisted on work requirements that are way stronger than what's included in this legislation. But I think these are important reforms that will make sure that Medicaid delivers the benefit that it should to those for whom it was intended. And if there are people who fall off, it probably is going to be people who probably shouldn't have been on the rolls in the first place.
We're going to continue our discussion with United States Senate Majority Leader John Thune right after this on Dakota News Now.